Hey everybody, Karaoke here. This is a guide to the Silverwastes. The Silverwastes is a zone that was added to Guild Wars 2 in the second half of 2014 as part of the second season of The Living World. In the Silverwastes, you'll be working with the Pact to capture 4 different forts to set up an offensive on bosses, Mordrem's minions. Now, the entire zone goes through 4 different phases: Foothold, Breach, Vinewrath, and a Timeout phase. Each of these has different objectives, which we'll talk about in the video. If you care only about a particular phase, look down in the description and there is a table of contents. You can jump to any particular part of the video. Now, in addition to the sort of main way of playing the map by doing the meta events, you can earn tons of gold by chest farming, using items that drop from the event to run around in circles with a bunch of friends and opening chests to get champ bags and gold and mats and other fun stuff. So with that said, let's get started. So first of all, to get to the Silverwastes, there is a portal at Fort Vandal in Brisbane Wildlands, so this is in the very, very west of the map. The map itself is not very big, although you will notice that there is a very, very small number of waypoints. There's really one right at the beginning, and then only one other waypoint that you can access as part of the map. That waypoint can and often is contested, although there is a meta event right in the area that will allow you to open it back up. So if you see that contested, help out your buddies go do that meta event. Now, the map itself has 4 different forts, which you are meant to capture and hold in order to push the meta event. You'll see that these have colors associated with each name, so there is red, purple, yellow, and blue. These happen to correspond with the colors of commander tags, so oftentimes commanders who are focusing on a particular fort will tag up with the associated color. You'll also see that there are events that happen in between the forts, the most notable of which are the Supply Dolyak escort events. Escorting Dolyaks between different forts will help you progress the meta events further. The primary enemy type in the Silverwastes are Mordrem, and Mordrem tend to have more health and do a lot more damage than enemies in the base game, so it's worth talking a little bit about each enemy and how we should fight them. First off, anytime you see a Mordrem Husk, those Husks have very high armor, but relatively low health, so they're very easy to burn down for Condi players. If you're a Condi player, seek out those Husks and destroy them. Of particular interest are Husk Slingers. Husk Slingers do very heavy ranged damage, including a lot of knockdown, so if you see Husk Slingers, take those out as soon as possible. Also high priority are Teragriffs, or Stabby Cats. Teragriffs have a charge attack that does extreme damage and leaves this lasting AoE behind them. You can chill, cripple, or immobilize the Teragriffs to keep them from charging. So if you see a Teragriff, put chill, cripple, or immobilize on it and save everyone else. Mordrem Menders will heal allies as well as apply might, but if you hit them while they're channeling, you will interrupt them. So any sort of pulsing AoE, think a lot of the Engineer Bomb Kit skills or Lava Fonts, will do a lot of work to keep Menders from being able to heal and buff other Mordrem. Trolls can also be kind of nasty. Use Reflex to reflect back troll attacks and avoid the insect AoEs on the ground. If you see yourself targeted by a troll, you'll get an icon over your head. Either kill the troll or just run. Of lower priority are Thrashers, who leave a line AoE. You can hit those behind for extra damage. And leeching Thrashers, who hurt you and heal themselves by leaving tentacles. Just walk out of those. Wolves do a lot more damage when they are flanking you, meaning they're at your sides or behind, so try to keep them in front of you at all times. Of the 4 phases in the Silverwastes, the Foothold phase typically lasts the longest. It's kind of the main phase where you will capture the 4 different forts and then hold them from increasingly strong attacks from Mordrem. You can run supply between the forts by escorting Dolyaks, and that supply helps those forts upgrade and have better siege. Holding these forts helps to push the meta event progress meter, which you'll see in the top right. Once that fills up, you'll go into the next phase, the Breach phase. Here's a few tips when you're in the Foothold phase. First off, make sure to res your downed allies. There's not a whole lot of waypoints, and the script tunnels can often be contested, so it might be a long run back for anybody who dies. Try to pick up anybody who's down so they can get back in the fight and help. If you successfully fight off a Mordrem attack, another event will spawn. We call it a Rubble event. In a Rubble event, you'll pick up pieces of rubble and give them to an NPC. This lasts until the next attack starts, and if you complete it, your fort will be refreshed, things will be repaired, and you'll have an easier time into the next defense event. A lot of times during the Rubble events, people will not be giving rubble to the NPC, leading them to fail, and this is a huge mistake. Make sure to be running rubble as soon as your defense event finishes. During the Foothold phase, there is also a chance for a legendary boss to spawn at each fort. Each fort has one specific boss that can spawn. At Red Rock, there's a Husk. At Amber, there's a Troll. At Indigo, there's a Teragriff. And at Blue, there's a Thrasher. Usually you'll want to call out these boss spawns on the map so that people can come help, and people like to get the kills anyway. In general, most of these bosses can be burned down pretty easily by pulling them in range of some of the siege on your fort. So for example, if you have a burning oil, pull them under the oil and dump the oil on them, and it'll do a number. The Husk that spawns at Red Rock has very high armor and does a lot of melee damage, so Condis are particularly useful. The Troll that spawns at Amber has really deadly insect swarms, so be very careful of those. Again, run away if you see the icon over your head. The Teragriff that has a charging attack at Indigo does really heavy melee damage as well. Make sure to keep up the chill, invuln, and cripple on the Teragriff. And then the Thrasher that spawns at Blue has that leeching attack, so be very quick to get out of those tentacles that spawn on you when you're fighting the Thrasher. Once the Foothold progress bar fills up, the map will move into a breach phase. During the breach phase, you will be able to enter the ground through a large hole that appears and fight one of 4 specific bosses, each tied to the different forts. At Amber, you will fight the Troll. At Blue, you will fight a Thrasher. At Indigo, you will fight Teragriffs. And at Red Rock, you will fight a Husk. Each boss has a different mechanic, and you should know the mechanic before you go in to fight the boss. The Troll at Amber is the most straightforward boss to fight. He has an AoE attack that appears in rings or kind of donuts around him. You just want to avoid those AoEs and just straightforward deal damage. Iron's ring AoE attack starts at close range and moves outward. During the 3rd ring attack, if you move into medium range, you can avoid most of the damage. The Thrasher boss, also called Platinum at Blue Fort, is a boss who will teleport as you start to deal damage to him. Some people seem to think he teleports when you do CC. That's not correct. He actually teleports based on a combination of a clock and health levels. The Thrasher is surrounded by poison bubbles that heal it when they pop, so it's very important to bring single target damage to this fight. Don't do large AoEs, as you'll heal the Thrasher considerably. The Thrasher will also do a pull and pull people in the room into him, then do a big projectile attack. Mesmers and Guardians use your Reflex to reflect those attacks back at him. Those start at 50% health. The gold and silver Teragriffs at Indigo charge around the room and do massive damage to players, but you can stop them by popping poison bubbles. You want to wait until the Teragriff gets right on the poison bubble and then pop it. That will do a stun during which you can do damage, and then they will charge in the opposite direction. You can fight them together or separate, either way will work. The most important thing is that players not pop those poison bubbles until the Teragriffs reach them. The Copper Husk at Red Rock has lots of defense and armor like other Husks, so he's particularly vulnerable to conditions. Like the Thrasher, he has poison bubbles in the room that will heal him, but until he gets down to about 20-25% health, you can easily kite away the poison bubbles and destroy them so they don't heal him. There are also offshoots in the room which will do bleeding if you attack them, so be very careful about using AoE around those guys, as you will quickly kill yourself with bleeding stacks if you damage them. Switch to single target damage once the Husk reaches about 20-25% health and the poison bubbles increase in number. After the breach phase, the map will move into the Vinewrath phase. During the Vinewrath phase, players will split up into 3 different lanes to assault the Mordrem Vinewrath, a large kind of flower boss thing. The objective of each lane is to defend a siege carrier, which will destroy walls, clearing the path to the Vinewrath. Once past the walls, players will have to defeat one of 3 bosses. The bosses must be defeated in order, and failing on a boss will cause the next lane to fight that same boss. The bosses in order are a Troll, a Thrasher, and a Teragriff. Players typically assume each lane will be successful, and thus the south lane, which goes first, will get the Troll boss, the mid lane, which goes second, will get the Thrasher boss, and the north lane, which goes last, will get the Teragriff boss. But lane failures do occasionally happen, so you may have to fight a different boss than you would expect. While you're defending your lane, note that you can use stealth and heals on your siege carrier, so using your combo fields and blast finishers can be very helpful here. In addition, your ammo pile can be destroyed by Mordrem. If it's destroyed, you'll have to bring ammo that drops in the area back to the siege pile to refill it. Note that north is a little tricky in this respect because the ammo is actually up in the trees. You dodge into the tree to drop the ammo out of it. Each of the 3 bosses has a specific mechanic, though in general just keep in mind that red makes you dead and white will save you. So avoid the red areas and stand in the white areas. The Troll boss will throw bees at you. Those bees are very dangerous. If you're attacked by the bees, kite those bees into a beehive. That helps build up that beehive to protect you from a laser attack. Hide behind the beehive during the big laser attack, look for that white safe spot, and you'll be fine. The Thrasher boss has a very dangerous spinning attack that throws out projectiles everywhere. Those projectiles can be reflected, so Guardians and Mesmers with their reflects can be very, very useful. There are also pustules around near the boss. If those pustules are hit by the spinning attack, they will explode and do massive AoE damage, but you can kill them before the Thrasher spins. Kill a pustule, stand in the white field for a buff, that'll help you do more damage and take less damage. At certain points, the Thrasher will move to the Vinewrath. Follow it there, because it will have a safe spot behind it that you can stand in while the Vinewrath attacks. The Teragriff boss is relatively straightforward. You'll just deal damage to it. Occasionally, though, it will move off to the side and the floor will electrify and do massive damage. The way to avoid that is to destroy the flower pods on the ground. When the Teragriff moves over to the Vinewrath, destroy those pods if they're not already, jump on top of them, and you will avoid the damage on the floor. After the 3 bosses are killed, you can run into the Vinewrath area to open a bunch of chests and get your massive amount of loot. After the Vinewrath is complete, the map will move into a 20-minute long timeout phase. There will be a bunch of champions that spawn, and you can kill them for some quick champ bags. After that, the only real thing to do is to go chest gathering in the hidden depths. This isn't quite as lucrative as the rest of the Silverwastes is, so a lot of times players will just leave rather than do this. The event that occurs here is often called the Pacman phase, because you'll run around in a maze chased by these dogs, which will one-shot kill you. So it's kind of like Pacman, where you're running away from things, trying to collect loot that you get from chests. What you want to do is open up little pods around in the maze. These will give you nightmare essences. These essences can be combined together with a skeleton key to open a big chest that's in the middle. These keys of greater nightmares will also drop from the Vinewrath, so you'll probably have some at this point as well. That chest in the middle has a small timeout, but you can go up there and open it a few times to get your loot. Now, the challenge in this phase is avoiding those dogs that will one-shot you. To do that, there are little flowers. If you walk through those, you'll get a short invulnerability buff that will keep them from one-shotting you. You can also dodge or use different types of evades or invulnerabilities to avoid them, though the flowers are the primary way that you'll do that. My suggestions for this part go straight to the chest of greater nightmares in the middle if you have any keys and open it up. After that, feel free to run around and open pods at your will. Keep in mind that if anybody goes down, it's not worth trying to res them, especially if they're full dead. If you're killed during this part, just take the waypoint outside and run back in. Nobody's going to be able to res you with the dogs running around. After the 20-minute timeout period, the map will go back into the Foothold phase, though you may note that everybody's left the map by then because they're looking for another, more active map. Because of this, typically the idea is to open that chest of greater nightmares, and once you run out of keys, if you don't feel like Pac-Manning a little bit, go ahead and open up LFG and look for another map you can join. If your goal is to make money in the Silverwastes, what you really want to do is chest farm. Chest farming is an activity where a group of players will run around and open chests with bandit skeleton keys that you can buy from a vendor. A typical chest farm run can turn over more than 50 chests, so you want to go and buy at least 50 of those keys before you get started. The best way to chest farm is to look for a chest farm map, join that, and follow the group, typically with a commander tag. Chests have to be dug up with a shovel. Shovels are in rare supply and are the thing that you'll usually see chest farm groups looking for. Bring your shovels and you can use the skills on those to dig up the chests once the commander reaches the appropriate spot. In Guild Wars, typically Magic Find doesn't help with chests or containers, but one exception here are these bandit chests. Your perseverance buff that you get by doing events in the map will give you extra Magic Find that help when you open the chest, although it does not help when you open the bags within them. Beating the Vinewrath also gives you Magic Find, so if you stay into a chest farm after a full Vinewrath run, you'll be able to get much better drops from those chests. Just be careful with the chest farm. While it is relatively lucrative and you'll get tons of mats and gold, it is also very grindy and can lead to a lot of burnout. I've seen a lot of players get tired and frustrated of the game because they've done too much chest farming, so do a few rounds and then take a break and do something else. Remember, this is a game and games should be fun, so if you're getting tired of it, play something else and come back a little bit later. That chest farm isn't going anywhere. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this guide. Our channel has a lot more guides like this, so feel free to check out other videos on our channel. Subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing. Give us a like, share with your friends, share on social media, and let people know. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to respond quickly. Also, feel free to leave any tips or anything you thought I might have left out. Thanks, guys, and happy farming.